Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Art Lab. I'm Claire Chase, professor of the practice here in the Department of Music. We consider this an extension of the Department of Music. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special evening of music and conversation in celebration of our distinguished guest, Annea Lockwood, and in anticipation of her concert, Fromm Foundation concert, that will happen on Friday, November 6th at 7 p.m. at Payne Hall. We hope that you can all join us for that. And I want to say thank you, first of all, to Jacek Smolitsky, the Loeb Art Lab Fellow this year, for leading many of you who just arrived. Welcome, we'll warm you up on this beautiful sound walk. And for those of you who weren't able to be a part of the sound walk, we had to cap reservations because there were only a certain number of headsets. Jacek is going to be organizing a walking festival of sound in April, so watch out for that. There'll be sound walks all over campus that he's organizing. Thank you as well to the amazing Bree Edwards at the Art Lab, one of my favorite co-conspirators here at Harvard, and to my wonderful colleague, Susanna Clark, in the Mahindra Humanities Center, for co-producing this event. Thank you as well to Harvard University Committee on the Arts for their support of this event and so many arts and humanities events in our community. I will properly... Thursday, November 6th. Thursday, November 6th. Thank you. I will properly introduce Teju Cole and Annea Lockwood after we hear some music. So we're going to begin with a piece of Annea's from 2016 called Bayou, Borne, the score for which is projected up here, both for the musicians to play from and also for you to follow along with if you wish. This is a map of the 6 bayous that flow through Houston. So this is Annea's Bayou, Borne, played by students in Music 180, the Harvard New Music Ensemble. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to the students of Music 180 for so fearlessly and generously throwing yourselves into this music. Grab a seat, you all. It was beautiful. So it is my great pleasure now to introduce to you two of the leading lights of our time. Teju Cole, Professor Teju Cole. Where is he? There you are, my dear. Professor Cole is the Gore Vidal Professor of the practice of creative writing here at Harvard. He's one of my favorite people, I think a hero of the arts community here, and also one of my favorite co-conspirators in making things happen at Harvard. His most recent book is the novel Tremor, published in 2023. It was named a Book of the Year by Time, also by the Washington Post, the New York Magazine, the Times in the UK, and the Financial Times, among a long list of others. He is an essayist, novelist, and photographer, and was the photography critic of the New York Times Magazine from 2015 until 2019. And we're just so delighted that you could accept this invitation. I will share with you that Teju is, as I am, a huge fan of Annea Lockwood. And when I told him that she'd be coming some months ago, and I said, could you possibly moderate a conversation with her on Wednesday, November 5th, the day before our Fromm Foundation concert? And he said, of course, he has a book event in New Orleans that night. And I said, okay, we'll change the event to Tuesday. So thank you so much for making it happen, Teju. And Annea Lockwood, the woman of the hour, what to say about you, Annea? This woman has changed the way that we perceive sound. She's changed the way that we hear the natural world. She is, among many other things, the recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society for Electroacoustic Music. And she has also been the subject of a documentary by the Academy Award-nominated filmmaker Sam Green. She taught at Vassar College for ages and has influenced generations of thinkers and practitioners. And we are just so incredibly honored to have her in our midst this week. Please join me in welcoming Teju Cole and Annea Lockwood.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Welcome. Thank you to the musicians. Wow, you can give them another. Because one of the things your music does is that sometimes it forces people who don't think of themselves as improvising musicians to improvise. So there's also all this vulnerability involved for them.
There were such beautiful sounds coming from you all
Extraordinary,
throughout
yeah.
the entire performance. Absolutely exquisite. And the way you gradually masked them and the way it darkened. The piece darkens towards the end in memory of Hurricane Harvey and its devastation, the devastation that the bayous created rising up. And you conveyed that so powerfully. I felt it so strongly. You were brilliant. Thank you all.
Yes,
Thank you.
you were.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight for this conversation. We'll talk about this music, and about life, and then open it up for conversations later on. Thank you very much to Professor Claire Chase for being the prime mover of things like this, for even thinking to invite me to do this. You know me. I'm on leave this term, but I said for this, I'm not on leave because I'm a big fan of Annea Lockwood's work. Haven't been listening to it for so long, 5 or 6 years, but from the word go, I thought, this is one of my people. This makes sense to me. And it was just a real delight to have the anticipation of looking, to be able to talk to you and now to be doing it. I'm stuttering. I'm like, usually so smooth.
And it's a thrill for me because I've been reading you ever since Open City.
See, that makes no sense.
Tremendous pleasure.
Well, thank you. So we could start with Bayou, Borne, the piece we just listened to, and some of you will have figured out that what we were listening to had something to do with the image up there. Maybe fewer of you would have come to the conclusion that the image we were looking at was the score of the music we were listening to. So that's interesting. It has these bayous. There's 6 of them converging, and we had these 6 lines coming together according to what was up there. Maybe you could say a little bit more about
Sure.
that? How is that a score, and how did the piece come to be?
There's a backstory. There's a little dedication at the end of the title for Pauline Oliveros. Pauline's 85th birthday was going to be celebrated by a festival at McGill University in which 85 composers were each invited to make a piece 85 seconds long. Really short pieces. And while I was mulling over what to do, Pauline was an old friend and I loved her dearly, the New York Times published this map of the bayous around flowing into Houston. And it just totally clicked. She was born in Houston. I figured she was a wild one. I figured that her feet knew those bayous intimately, if not the rest of her body. And of course, she was a brilliant improviser and a critical thinker in terms of what improvisation, the world of improvisation, let's say. So it all sort of converged, as it were. And I took the map, gave it to a good friend, Doris Jokelson, who simplified it, made it legible, and we had a graphic score. And I think the first performance was 6 voices going downstream lickety-split. But it's for all sorts of instrumental combinations. And this really was a beautiful realization of it, a very special one.
Yeah. So originally written for 6 voices and or instruments, and now we had 14.
Yes,
So
it's ramifying. The bayous are spawning.
That's what they do. I mean, by definition, a bayou doesn't have definable banks.
Right.
Always spreading out to include violinists and electric bassists. Your music, this is true of all music, but maybe especially yours, at least my experience of it, it is exquisitely about listening. There's some music that really will be satisfied with being heard, just about hearing. Yours is about this animal bodily attention to listening. So maybe before we get into that core of this practice, maybe we could just, like, some of the biographical background. You're Kiwi?
Sure, yes.
And you've been composing making music for a while, some decades. So you started off in New Zealand, so maybe talk about that a little bit.
Oh, I've been realizing more and more recently how so much of what I do musically, so much of the way my pieces evolve comes from my childhood in New Zealand. It was a childhood spent partly in the New Zealand Alps, the Southern Alps, which are wild country. They're young mountains.
Yes.
They're beautiful, near wild rivers. I think I grew up assuming that all rivers are wild. So recently, Nate Woolley, the composer and trumpeter, and I have been making a sound map of the Columbia, and both of us were sort of appalled to run headlong into Bonneville Dam within 80 miles of the mouth of the river. Neither of us had associated rivers to that extent with dams, with constraint, with control. So I grew up assuming that all rivers are wild. Lord knows where I thought our hydroelectricity, of which we were proud, came from.
Yes,
I was not putting two and two together. Then went over to the UK and hanging around Darmstadt and Donaueschingen in Germany in the early 60s, I was hearing electronic music. And it was an astonishment. I mean, all of a sudden, it was clear that you could it was as if you could hold sound in your hand and shape it, directly. And what I love, of the many things I love in sound are the details, the timbral details, but it's texture. It's texture, the textural details of sound. So all of a sudden, this was something I could play with directly.
Yes.
And I just sort of careened on from there.
So how does a lovely young woman from New Zealand find herself in the UK burning pianos?
Because I needed
She makes it sound so genteel, but in the 60s, this woman was burning pianos as performance and scandalizing all kinds of people for doing so.
Oh, pianos are so symbolic. I wasn't taking that into account when I burned the first piano.
People had feelings.
Yeah, all that Victorian imagery of the decorous young woman being able to play a Mozart sonata impeccably, being therefore marriageable, etc., etc. I mean, there is this long history of association of women and pianos, not to mention men and pianos. Yeah. I burned a piano because it was pragmatic. I needed to record fire.
Yes.
I was sort of...
No jury would convict. Yes.
No way. And for a dance piece that I was concocting with a choreographer, in which we decided we were really going to go flat out, and we were going to heat the performance space up, so to an extent where the audience would be sweating like crazy.
Yes.
It was going to be really heat in all sorts of manifestations, and so I had to have good fire sound.
Yes.
And I lit various fires, various places, and none of them worked, none of them satisfied. And then I thought maybe it needs to be something which has deliberate, sonorous qualities. And people were dumping their grandmothers' pianos all over the UK at the time. I mean, these were pianos that were not maintained, cracked soundboards, just irreparable, making room for the TV in the living room. And there was a piano graveyard in London, actually, Wandsworth, where the local, garbage collectors would in turn dump these uprights mostly. Yeah. And so, for a little festival on the Embankment in Chelsea in London, we sent a piano movers truck off to the Wandsworth piano graveyard, so to speak, and picked up a couple and took them off to the Embankment. And it was hilarious because I also had a microphone, which I could afford, an old ribbon mic, which I no longer wanted to use, and I could afford to put it right inside the piano. And I like getting, now I would say I like getting inside a sound. Yes. At that point, I would say I like to be right there. Yes. The thing itself. I want the thing itself to be, I want you as a listener to feel whatever it is I'm recording, I'm working with, to feel it in yourself. So obviously we were going to put a microphone in the piano and let it last as long as its cables last. And we did this whole setup. And then, of course, a crowd gathered, which was not unexpected. However, what didn't occur to me was that, of course, the crowd talked its head off And, and so we had this great tape with a lot of crowd conversation on it, complete washout as a recording. But visually, it was astonishingly beautiful. It was seductive.
There's video.
Oh, even then, I wasn't even thinking video.
Yeah.
I was thinking live.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So there was video of later performances.
Yeah, that
of
video sort
piano
of crept
burning.
in later.
Yeah.
But initially it was, there are so many different, I could go on forever, excuse me, you have to stop me.
No, I won't.
There are so many different varnishes in pianos, and I have to say
Yes.
that all of these pianos and the pianos that have been burnt since, and nowadays I'm discouraging the practice, so to speak, but all of them are beyond repair.
Yeah.
There is it is not a gesture,
Right.
A cultural gesture in the slightest. These are pianos which cannot be repaired,
Yeah,
cannot
they
be
can be
used.
saved, yeah.
And that's the absolute rock bottom requirement of doing any of the piano transplants.
Yeah.
And in any case, there are all sorts of beautiful varnishes in these pianos. And so we did it again at night, which was really spectacular. And there were violet flames, green flames, orange flames. It was so amazingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic.
Right. Yeah. How does that piano sound?
It sounds
Let me
great.
get my lighter. Yeah.
You overstring the strings.
Yes.
Some of them pop, but you can't
I was going
guarantee
to ask about that. So you said it's not a gesture, right? It's not because for a different kind of artist, it's about burning the piano and poking a finger in the eye of the unsuspecting public. For you, again, it comes down to the sonic.
Yeah.
Because it's not just burning a pile of wood.
No.
So you've just talked about strings snapping at unpredictable moments.
And so you overtune the strings, you're obviously going to do that. And what I like about that is that you cannot guarantee the piano will cooperate. And sometimes there are no snapped strings, sometimes they're popping off all over the place. So I love that unpredictability of non-human entities, let's say.
That's right. Now this, maybe to take a huge leap forward, this line runs through all your work, this sense that it is collaborative, and that which we call the instrument is also an agent and is also present. So, for example, I think about can't remember anything. The skin.
Skin resonance?
Skin resonance.
Yes.
Skin resonance.
Bass drum.
2023.
Yeah. Vanessa Tomlinson.
That's right. So that is a piece for 2 bass drums and 1 voice, and it's 1 performer that does all of that.
And she's composing a piece too. That's Vanessa Tomlinson's composition. She asked me for a piece for bass drum, and so I said, as I did with you when you asked me for a piece, I said, let's do it together.
Yes.
Let's just do it with, not for.
Yes.
And Vanessa created that amazing.
Co-created.
Co-created
But
that
part of the
amazing piece.
co-creation is, in fact, I'm going to find, excuse me just a second. There's something she said that I want to because pardon me. Let's see. I start to think about my skin as an ear, so maybe the bass drum skin is an ear as well. So
Isn't
there's
that-
this intense sympathy with the object.
And that's Vanessa speaking.
Right? She's listening,
Yeah.
but she feels maybe the drum is listening.
They share a listening ear, a listening skin,
Yes.
a hearing skin.
Yeah.
She and the drum. Yeah, which I think is a wonderful concept. No?
It's wonderful. As a person who does language, I couldn't help but also hear in that the word or the sound Annea show up twice, which if you say with a Kiwi accent is exactly the same as your name.
True, but
I start to think about my
an
skin as
accident.
Annea. So maybe bass drum skin is Annea as well.
I don't think either of us had ever thought of that, but I do like it, I
okay,
confess.
It's wild criticism. That's what I
I
call
like
it.
it.
This kind of sympathy extends to your manifold works of working in natural environments. You talk about not listening to, listening with.
Yes.
Expand on that.
The difference seems to me to be huge. We're constantly talking about listening to, but to my mind, that objectifies whatever it is we're hearing, right? It's an objectification. It puts it, we don't think of it this way mostly, but it puts it outside ourselves. However, on several different levels, it's not in the least outside ourselves. If it's the source of a sound, that sound, the sounds which it is generating, the vibrations it's generating, are passing into your body. Instantly. I mean, sound moves super fast and enters the body super fast and affects all sorts of physical elements, such as blood sugar levels, which surprised me when I learned it. For example, many, many different physiological aspects are affected by sound. So it's entering your body willy-nilly, whether you're conscious of it or not, and potentially affecting small neural changes. You're being transformed. So it's definitely not an object. It's a coexisting element in the shared world, really. And it's a form of communication. And then I sort of keep thinking, this is actually, I like to call it a conduit of communication, formed between your body, its visceral elements, and the vibration, the source of the vibrations, which are entering your body. You are in connection with that source. And then take it a little further, you are not separate.
Yes.
Not separate. So you're no longer listening to, you're listening with everything around you, which is also being affected by those vibrations.
Yes.
So it's sort of nice to go outside barefoot, stand somewhere where you can feel vibrations moving through pavement or with luck, grass, soil, the bed of a river, and know that you're listening with the soil, with the grass, with the pavement, you know, with the worms in the soil, you know, with the bugs, with everything, with the mycorrhizal fungi, right? With everything that's alive and growing, and there is so much. It's all alive. It's all alive and growing. So you're in communication with all of that through your body. That's what I'm getting at.
Amazing. Yeah, you're not an anthropologist with a PhD sticking your microphone into the environment saying, I will collect the knowledge about what's going on out here. You are, in a way, a latecomer to what has already been happening there before your arrival.
And which many peoples have known about for a very long time.
That's right. Yeah, you've had it sort of educated out of you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think I also heard you say somewhere about, you know, this notion that everything in the environment also, they're all already listening to each other.
Yes.
They're already listening with each other already. Turns out we were the ones who weren't, but
we lost track of that knowledge.
Right.
I'm sure, I can't imagine our species didn't fully
depend on it before.
Depend on that knowledge many, many, many multiple generations back. I can't imagine that we didn't just arrive out of nowhere. You know, we lived in an interconnected, living, breathing, sensing, vibrating world, and you see the remnants of that knowledge still. I mean, you see it in the insistence to touch on something that Claire and I have been much involved with lately, of the lower Elwha Clallam tribe in up in the northwest, in Washington, the tribe's insistence on protecting the Elwha River, on getting the dams out of that river so the river could take itself back.
Yes.
The river could be liberated, and it is taking itself back super fast.
Yeah.
We've been recording it, we've been watching it,
Yes.
we've been, knocked out by it. But that old knowledge is what's underneath the tribe's huge pressure put on the Department of the Interior, and the company that owned the dams, to just get rid of the dams.
Yeah.
For example, it's still there. We've got it. We know it. We just have to unearth it.
We've
right?
maybe slightly forgotten, and we need to be reminded. There's a writer I learn a lot from. His name is John Berger, and he yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I love him.
Oh, good.
I brought him with me on this trip.
Oh, amazing. Good.
Anyway,
Unsurprising
sorry.
somehow, but yes. Life is full of these good surprises. And he says somewhere that, for animals, survival in the wild has always dependent on knowing how to hide. And I think because, there's predators. And I think to that we could add that survival depends on knowing how to listen.
Yes.
If we've got our patio garden gets a lot of critters out here in Greater Cambridge, but that rabbit needs to be listening, because who knows what else is out there? Those little chipmunks, they need to be listening. That kind of alertness, and I have to say, anticipating this conversation, listening to your music, and doing this thinking ahead of this, I just found my whole body did become a kind of like an ear. I was, I think maybe one of the deepest gifts from your music and from your compositions is that it's asking the listener to listen. It's not saying, here's this melody, consume this. It's saying, listen, and listen some more. And I think that thought maybe leads me in two slightly different directions. One is about duration and where that comes from in your work, but we can talk about that later. But the other direction is about rivers, which you've mentioned, and maybe a more organic continuation. You've been recording rivers for, let's say, probably for longer than I've been alive, and
Since 68.
longer
like
than
that.
I've been alive.
No.
I just turned 50. I'm not that young, but what is time anyway? You've been recording rivers, so let's talk about hydrophonics. Hooked on hydrophonics.
What a great word.
Yeah. You were recording the river, the surface of the river, and then at some point, that still wasn't close enough. So you wanted to record inside the river. Oof. Okay.
That was funny. It was a sort of hit yourself over the head moment because because these are two interrelated and distinct worlds, right? The world of the surface and above, and the world under the surface, and they sound very different. And I think I first started using a hydrophone on the Danube, and I couldn't believe that I'd been so stupid as not to realize that this world was always there, under the Hudson,
What's the difference, if you can put it in words a little bit?
Oh, for one thing, it's acoustically a beautifully resonant realm.
Down there.
Yeah, it has a very different resonance from above the surface. It's inhabited by a plethora of critters of various sorts, which all make wonderful, interdependent, interlocking, interlistening patterns, sounds, signals.
Yeah.
Thinking of which, just because it makes us both laugh, we recently found online I was looking for Chinook salmon signals and couldn't believe that I wasn't going to find a whole stash of them at Cornell, at least, if not elsewhere. I found 6 recorded by Kelsey Murchie, Dr. Kelsey Murchie, in University of Vancouver, of Chinook salmon, Pacific Chinook salmon. You get very specific with this stuff, right?
Yes, yes.
But 4 of them were of salmon farts. And which was a great find. And they sound like it, right? And the scientific designation of those singles ends in uppercase FRTS. So of course we put them in the river. But there's so much very clear life down there, which is absolutely beguiling. Yeah. I sometimes, when I'm talking about the rivers and I have an audience with children in it, I say to the kids, save up some money and buy a hydrophone. You'll be amazed. Jack it into your phone. Wow. You'll be absolutely astounded. Wow. Or buy your kid a hydrophone for Christmas.
Maybe to make a big zoom out from that, what is it about sound that ends up being so emotional?
Oh, you know, because you write about it beautifully.
You're the expert.
The way it catches up your whole being is doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it entrains your whole body.
Yeah.
Right. It can bring on a feeling of ecstatic letting go of one's sense of self.
Yeah.
You know, letting go of the voice in your mind that's always critiquing you, letting go of what makes you hold your shoulders back like this or round them like that, just letting all of that go.
Yeah.
The sense of yourself, the judgment of yourself, just letting it all go and being taken over by something so powerful.
That's right. Yeah. Because there's a passive element to hearing.
Yeah.
So you can't quite shut off your ears. So I think that's part of the strange power of it. It's coming in anyway.
Right.
And then when you tune into it, there is a way someone's voice can completely disarm and wreck you in a way that even a photograph will not.
Oh, yeah.
If it's a voice you've not heard in a while. I know that a substantial part of loss and grief is the wish to hear the voice again.
Oh, yes. And how you can almost hear it.
And it's just almost there.
Yeah, almost.
There's a couple of related works, if you wouldn't mind talking about. One is called Conversations, and the other is called Faruth. Yeah. Conversations is from 1974.
Yeah.
And Faruth is from 2021. Can you talk about these 2 pieces?
The Ruth referred to was my partner, composer, an excellent composer, beautiful electronic music, among other things. It was very funny, Ruth Anderson. So she did some very funny collages and these beautiful electronic pieces. She died in 2019. We had been together at that point for, I think, 46, going on 47 years. And after a little while after her death, I mean, of course I wanted to be talking with her. As, you know, immediately I wanted to be communicating with her. But after a little while I realized that I could talk with her by going back to places in New Hampshire, near Peterborough, New Hampshire, where she'd spent a lot of time, going back to the ponds where we used to swim or float on inflatables or just hang out, and recording the sounds of the village sounds of Hancock, where she rented a house for a year. That was a significant year because she was on sabbatical. She needed a replacement to teach in the studio she had installed and was running at Hunter. Pauline, who was a sort of deus ex machina in our lives, for sure.
Yes.
Pauline told Ruth to call me up in London and offer me the job. She said, just get her over here, she'll do it. And I was dying to get over here because by far the most interesting experimental music that I was experiencing was coming from here. So I said yes. Ruth went on
to come
sabbatical.
here to replace her on her sabbatical year.
Yeah, we fell for each other immediately. Ruth always said it was within 3 days, and by the end she was saying within 3 hours. So I went back to Hancock to record the sounds of our first coming together and made For Ruth, which incorporates both our voices.
Yes.
Because when we were coming together, I was obviously in New York teaching in the studio. Ruth was in New Hampshire. We would call each other sometimes twice a day, the way one does. But I didn't know for quite a little while that Ruth was taping those conversations. And eventually she owned up, and it was absolutely fine with me because in our way of working, almost any material is great, is viable, as long as it's alive.
Yes.
Right? And if you need permission to use it, then you seek permission, and usually you get it. So Ruth had been taping our conversations, and I went down to New Zealand to see my mother for 6 weeks, and that was really a hard parting. She made this collage of our conversations. The whole middle section is just us laughing back and forth. We did a lot of that.
You need to listen to, I don't know how to describe it. It is as alive as it sounds. It is mostly just, they are so ridiculously, embarrassingly, absurdly in love that it's just like 15 minutes of them giggling and laughing.
It's online.
And it's all cut.
Yes. It's online.
The album is called Tête-à-Tête, and Conversations is in that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up.
I mean, look at my face. I mean, I just, when you're listening to something like that, you're thinking, I can't believe this exists, because this is the purest thing on earth. But then you take that same material, which she made into a Ruth Anderson collage, and you made it into an Annea Lockwood piece called For Ruth. Because your version then interleaves the sounds of nature, insects. Place.
Yeah. Evocative place, memory.
Yeah.
Memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time? We can keep going another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll open it up. Maybe that can lead us to maybe thinking about the role that freedom plays in this practice of yours, right? Because when people hear composer, they think of a particular thing.
Less and less, I would hope. But
folks like their fixed ideas. There's still some version of, is it music?
Oh, God, is this still?
I feel as if I've been... Hate to be the bearer of that bad news,
Yeah.
But what I like about the response I'm getting from you is you're so over it. It sounds as if you got over it a very long time ago.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe go back to that moment where you shook off your wings and flew out in the freedom of what you wanted to do with your art.
It happened over a little period of time. It wasn't instantaneous conversion on the road, too. I heard a beautiful piece by Herbert Eimert, German composer, in memoriam Aikiki Kubayama, electroacoustic piece, very moving, really stunning piece. And that's what hooked me on electronic music. And from there, I diverged into working with glass, because it was a material from which I could make... It was a material which gave all sorts of vibrational sounds.
Yes.
You set it in motion. All sorts of glass, and I don't mean commercial glass of the domestic kind. I mean industrial waste glass, all sorts of forms of glass.
Yeah.
And I became a little didactic. I wanted to seduce people into listening to one sound source and its partials, its details, as a complex composition in itself, because they are. I was trying to replicate that sort of complexity in the studio. I couldn't get anywhere near it. I mean, that's one of the things I love about rivers. Those sounds are layered in complexity, and there's no way I'm going to be able to reproduce that, right? It's beyond my capacity. The same with a lot of non-electronic sounds. I began searching for a material which people would not be able to identify by ear.
Yes.
Because the label allows you to flick it away.
To capture it and just say, I'm done.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know what that is. I'm done with it. Don't have to listen to it anymore.
Right.
Or you do, of course, continue to listen to it, but identification gets in the way.
Yes. So with so much of this music, your music, there's this experience of, I close my eyes and I'm listening and I'm thinking, these sounds are doing something to me. I can see the relationship between this sound and that sound. I can see how these things are responding to each other, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what instrument is making that sound. I don't know if that's an instrument or a collage of a natural sound. And it is thrilling to be out there sort of in the wind like that.
Yes.
So I may be completely wrong about this, but it sounds as if part of what maybe people at Darmstadt or people at Erkam were doing and still trying to do just with instruments, you were saying, well, there's more material out here. Like, for example, you mentioned partials. Makes me think of spectralists who are still trying to do a lot of this with instruments, electronic instruments, analog instruments.
And beautifully.
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 Yeah, I agree. I really like Grisey.
Yeah. Me too.
But you went elsewhere. You said, the world is already giving us so much. Why leave that out? And industrial material as well.
I like being surprised.
Yes. Yeah. Can you say a little bit about your collaboration with Claire Chase?
Oh, yes, I could say much about that. It's been one of the joys of my recent life.
Yeah.
Clara, so once I said to Clara, I'd like to make a piece with you, not for you, but with you. Then my mind sort of skipped to the Elwha because I had been thinking about it. It had been recently freed of its dams. I'd been talking about the Elwha since 2014, since the last dam came down and talks about rivers, but I hadn't seen it, and I wanted to, and I hadn't heard it, and I wanted to.
Oh, could you tell our folks the shape of it or where it runs?
Yeah, it's a short river. It's 47 miles long. Starts in the Mount Olympus in the Olympic Peninsula. Very beautiful rainforest up in the northwest in Washington, and it runs more or less straight downhill, fast into the Juan de Fuca Strait, right? Super fast river. It's a wonderful little river. It was a great salmon fishing river, steelhead trout, salmon, especially Chinook, but all five species of salmon used that river, grew up in that river, learned its chemistry, remembered
fart in
it,
that river, probably.
They remembered its chemistry for 100 years. So which is astonishing to think about, right? So when the last dam came out, the young salmon, by then maybe I'm beginning to forget what I've read about salmon. I noticed, I think maybe 4 or 5-year-old salmon, which had been in the Pacific, growing up in the Pacific since they were smelts, started coming back to the river. They remembered, and they started coming upriver. And they're coming upriver more and more in increasing numbers. Anyway, so the Elwha was on my mind, and so I thought, this is sort of, would she go for this? And I proposed to Claire that we do a piece about the Elwha. And being Claire, because I didn't yet know you, I should have known, she immediately said yes. Of course she did.
Yeah.
And, right, we took a trip together to experience the river together from the very beginning of the project. And made field recordings, met Dave Ty, who's been our sort of guide to the river ever since. And we just kept going. This was in, when was it? Was it April 24 or was it, yeah. I was also starting working on the Columbia with Nate at that same time, so I managed to keep the sound files separate, but I don't always keep the dates separate.
So how did the flutes come in?
Because of Claire being a magnificent, wonderful musician, and the flutes are her instrument, the way a microphone is mine.
Yeah.
So the piece, of course, as pieces do, has grown. We have 7 to 8 tracks of pre-recorded flute of all sorts of flutes, water flutes, bamboo flutes, Western flutes, Claire's voice, which is astonishing, really marvelous, the occasional elk, and and the river and its various manifestations.
So it's going to be sort of like a surround sound?
With Claire playing
speakers,
live.
With Claire playing live.
Yeah, that's right.
Adding a live line to this.
7 channels, the 7.1 or 7.2. We're lucky we can get a couple of subwoofers, which is always fun. So seven speakers basically, and Claire live, and all floating on top of all these flutes. And
is this part of Density 2036? Do I have that right? 2036? Yeah. Does everybody know what Density 2036 is? If you don't know, show of hands. Okay, so Claire, Density 2036 is Claire Chase's 25-year-long project to commission new music for the flute, broadly defined. And the project is supposed to go from when it started until 2036. So 2013, did it begin? Something like that? So how many are you in? How many part what?
We're exactly at the midpoint. I mean, the best company for year 12.
I can't even commit to the large size of half and half for my coffee because it's like too much commitment. I get a small box. She has a 25-year-long, I can't even speak English. Anyway, I'm in deep admiration, and this is the latest installment of that. So this is part 12. So that's what Density 2036 is. It is named for a piece by Edgar Varese that will be 100 years old in 2036. Vision, just visionary shit. It's amazing. Yeah. Like my mind is just,
Claire is a person for whom nothing is impossible, I've concluded.
Truly.
Which is a fantastic gift.
Truly. Well, we're so excited that I'm excited that you two are collaborating with each other. We're extremely excited that you're collaborating with us in this conversation because I think collaboration is just the heart of what you do, how you talk, how you think. It's very obvious. The composer is this macho figure that delivers the score to you, something that is just not interesting to you. And in all kinds of ways, at this moment, anything like this that is embodied, tactile, true, human, it just cuts through all the bullshit and it really is very touching and moving to us, right? So we're very deeply grateful for that.
Oh, I'm so grateful for your ears and minds and your generosity.
Thank you.
Deeply, it supports all of this. Deeply, and for your thinking about music, and I want to read more and more and more of it.
Oh, thank you. I'll try to write more. We'll maybe open this up for a few questions from folks out here. Thank you. Claire? What's over there? Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, for writers, there are often things that are very personal, but that they're afraid to go into, especially if, say, they're writing memoir. Is there anything that you have found very difficult to go into in your sound, in your art, but that you felt you had to go into in order to perhaps tell the truest version of what you hope to do with sound?
Not so far, really, actually. I mean, I think I've long since concluded that if a piece needs something explicitly physical, say, then it needs it. And I'm not going to ask a friend to provide it, I do it myself. Pieces need this, that, and the other one searches those sound sources out and enables them to, get into the piece. So not so far. But it's a fantastic question, actually.
It is. And really, fearlessness is one of Annea's gifts to us, because earlier today I was re-listening to a piece of hers from 1970, I think it is, called Tiger Balm. And I was listening to it, not on my headphones, but on my speakers, and my research assistant was around. You see where this is going?
I know where it's going.
Yeah, she was in the other room. And it kind of starts, there's a tiger purring, and then there's other natural sounds, and there's like this sort of rhythmic thing going on, and sort of halfway through the piece, there's breathing, it's a woman breathing, and then you realize that the woman is breathing and breathing, and the breathing gets more and more involved. She's having an orgasm. So I thought, I think I'd best lower this so that I don't have to get into a conversation with this young person who works with me. But if the piece needs something, it needs it. And we're all grown-ups here. We can deal.
The piece is about a woman and a tiger making love, and it comes from deep in my psyche somewhere. I mean, the tiger is, would the correct term be, is my avatar?
Yeah.
So that piece came out of that place in me, and it needed an orgasm. And as I said, I wasn't going to ask a friend to masturbate for me. You do it for yourself, You
Beautiful piece of music.
Best
listen to with headphones.
And a corollary is that indeed there are tigers making love, mating in it. A recording I stole from the BBC archives years ago when I was making a series of programs on trance music and so on, ritual for the BBC. It was wonderful. I could dig into their archives and listen to whatever I wanted to listen to. And so I took a tape recorder with me and I recorded tigers making love, tigers mating, which is quite a sound. Yeah.
Fearlessness is contagious.
Thank you so much. I really thoroughly enjoyed hearing that conversation. And I was wondering, I can hear such a deep curiosity at the base of your work, but also respect. And I was wondering if it feels relevant, if you could speak to how you see the concept of care in relation to your work, like care for the rivers or for the listener or also for yourself.
With the rivers specifically, I'm always hoping that without my needing to be at all directly didactic about it, which I don't like to do, I can sort of seduce you into listening so deeply that you feel you are inside the river. And my thinking is that once you reach that place, then and quite often people give me similar feedback along these lines, then you begin to remember a river, maybe from where you grew up, a river that you used to dive into, you used to pick water plants in, you used to fish in. And as you reconnect in your memory like that, then maybe you start to ask yourself, so how's that creek, river, spring doing? these days? Is it clogged? Is it full of chemicals? Is it free? Is it clear? Are people caring for it? All of it without my saying anything along those lines. I think if you make sensory connection is powerful, you know. So I really am convinced if we can make sensory connection with the non-human world in any manifestation which draws us, then we begin to care. Then caring arises naturally from that, I think. And God knows that's what we know we need to do. No?
Thank you for reminding me about The Glass World of Annea Lockwood. I had that record a long time ago.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted to pick up on what you said about the act of listening, and I would say that listening doesn't happen with the ears, but it happens with the whole body, right? And it seems to me that our current social distress, or disease, if you might, is perhaps the result of being immersed in industrial environment. Put aside the chemicals, but just the sound of living in an industrial society. We've only been doing that for 200 years, as opposed to our evolutionary history of 500,000 or 1 million or whatever it is. So could you talk about that?
I used to think that was sort of irreversible damage. But Ruth and I were teaching together at Hunter at one point and teaching an intro to music class. And instead of teaching the canon, we decided to start in the area of psychoacoustics and move on into the area of the musical cultures from which the students in the class came. And it was a New York City class at Hunter, and it was rich in cultural origins, you know. So back to psychoacoustics, part of that, we gave our students hearing studies each week, and they would do them and write about them. So quite a few of those hearing studies were asking students to focus on sound in their neighborhood environments, which just to pick up on sounds in their neighborhood environments and think about them and write about it. And little by little, people were writing things such as I never knew. I mean, I really never listened to the birds that hung out in the cherry tree in the park across the road until now, you know. And little by little, people were finding sounds in their neighborhoods which they really began to relish. And it began to turn them from blocking out the sonic environments in which they were living with earbuds and so on, from really, really blocking it out to letting it in. And that gave us some hope. It's a switch in consciousness, maybe. But it was happening. It was lovely to see it. And then, of course, we went on to have a lot of fun with music from the different cultures in which people's families were grounded. But that was telling, and we never forgot it.
Yeah. Is the idea also a bit that no matter where you are, there's something there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 I have a question that maybe builds on that question. First of all, thank you. What a pleasure. My question is, to what extent you allow the artificial to converse with the natural? Because you're prioritizing the natural. Even in that answer, it's sort of the birds that block out all the sound of the industrial context that we live in. And I was thinking of the fact, I mean, in your damming of the dam rivers, is very clear in terms of your position. The bayous in Houston actually are incredibly artificial and have been manipulated. And so to what extent do you sort of take that into account or work with the artificial and its effect on the natural?
I really suspect that I do my best to avoid the artificial. However, Nate and I, working on the Columbia, Nate pulled me up short not very long ago, which is to say about a year ago. We've been working on it for quite a long time, by saying we need to be able to include the industrial sounds of the river. This is an industrial river, and that is its nature at this point. And so which was fine by me, actually. He was absolutely right. And so I stopped avoiding sites in which there'd be actually, I love the sounds of barges. I've loved them ever since I worked on the Danube, but there would be some heavy industrial sound from one of the big firms, construction firms in the area. I stopped avoiding recording them and started to record them and started to listen much more closely to them and began to really like them. I mean, they're these great rich drones that industry provides us with, that are quite beautiful. So our Columbia, until we get way up in British Columbia, and even then we're recording the dams operations, our Columbia is including the river's industrial environment. And that's I notice is fine with me. Yeah.
One is healthy and one is...
Well, it depends what the industry is, yeah. But sometimes industrial sounds, there are certain distances from which heavy industrial sound is absolutely gorgeous. Sort of, the atmosphere changes it, transforms it. It can float. It can be. I've heard absolutely beautiful recordings and made some, or at least friends of mine have, in the Delaware Water Gap of distant traffic just floating, and of course it travels across the surface of the water in very special ways. So yeah, I'm not as doctrinaire as I used to be.
I'd like to offer the last question to a student. Would anybody like to?
Thank you so much for sharing your work with us and for your kind feedback on our dress rehearsal earlier today. It was really generative to be able to hear your thoughts and interact with your reactions. I have a question about, well, of course, it's about listening. I guess from what I'm understanding is through the act of sort of listening more acutely, we gain more kind of understanding of our environment and our relation to our environment as well. And I wonder if you could speak about how then the act of listening, because sound is a relational medium, can help us learn more about ourselves as our positionality with relation to what we're listening with.
Let me, because expression in the abstract is not one of my fortes, as it happens. So let me give you a sort of visual analogy. Maybe the sense I have that in listening to sound coming from a non-human source, our whole bodies are involved, that is part of a loop, because also our responses are going out into the environment. And so what it does for us is a deep connection. And that can really provide you with a sense of home, I'm connected to this place. For example, I have a backyard surrounded by a lot of trees, and then behind the rocks, which show at the end perimeter of my yard, is a whole area that's treed, which cannot be commercially developed. There's a wetlands at the bottom, thank God. So I walk out into my backyard, and there are these living entities all around me, right? And I feel them through my feet and through my whole body, and respond to them, and I'm at home. It's like it's home space. And that's tremendously grounding, and tremendously comforting. So when things begin to look impossibly out of control, I do that. And it's so comforting. And we all do. I think we all know that we can do that, right? It's best done with bare feet, but doesn't have to be. So that would be how I would respond. You can sense how grounded you are, how this is your home,
Thank you, Annea.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you all
Teju.
very much.
Thank you so much. Oh, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Claire. And thank you. Bayou Band.
Thank you all.